Hello, my name is Alistair Ferrier and I work in the National CIAG Policy and Professional Practice team with a lead for the Armed Forces community. Welcome to the SHAPE of Practice session about the Armed Forces community in Scotland. During this session, we'll provide you with an overview of the Armed Forces community in Scotland and the key organisations who provide support to the Armed Forces community. This will include the serving military, Navy, including the Royal Marines, the Army, the Royal Air Force plus reserves, veterans, spouse partners, family members, children, support organisations for spouse partners and families, the Armed Forces Community Covenant, the Career Transition Partnership, CTP, Forces Employment Charity, FEC, Veterans Scotland, and some information about SDS resources on Connect, Yammer, and our Armed Forces champions. The Armed Forces have a significant footprint in Scotland, and as you can see from the map, the Army has the most locations and units across Scotland. Although it is the Royal Navy who have the most personnel in Scotland, this will increase as more and more of the submarine fleet moves into Faslane. The Army are located across Scotland, although predominantly on the east coast, with the Royal Navy being based primarily out of Helensburgh, Faslane, HNMB, and in Rosyth, with the Royal Air Force based at RAF Lossiemouth up in Murray, with a second runway at Lookers for backup. Lookers used to be an RAF base, it is now an Army base. Veterans in Scotland. In the following slides, we will talk about the veterans community in Scotland. As you can see from this slide, according to the 2022 census, there are 176,089 veterans in Scotland. The 2022 census was the first time that this information had been collected. The vast majority of veterans are over age 65. This is not unexpected, as a huge number of veterans are from the Second World War, the Korean conflict, and those who served during the National Service years. This slide shows the makeup between those who identify as male and female from the census. 88% of veterans identify as male, with only 12% as female. Again, those numbers are not really surprising when you think about the armed forces and the makeup of the armed forces since World War II. In this slide, you can see quite clearly the number of veterans living in each local authority area across Scotland and as a percentage of the local population. And please take a moment to look at your own individual local authority area and have a look at the number of veterans and the number expressed as a percentage of the population. As you can see, for example, in Murray, although the numbers may be lower than other areas, it is 9.03% of the population of Murray. In this slide, you can see the number of working age veterans across the local authority areas. The number of working age people is defined by those aged between 16 and 64. And although an outdated method of counting those of working age, it is still what the government uses to count the working age population. In this case, 57% of Murray veterans are defined as working age. This drops to 43% for Edinburgh, so there are number-wise more veterans living in the city of Edinburgh than there are of Murray. Please take some time to have a look at your own local authority area, have a look at the numbers there. The next slide is just for information and shows you the number of veterans over age 65. The percentage figures don't always add up, when you combine them with the number of working age veterans, but this is due to rounding and accountancy measures adopted by the census. So sometimes when they're rounding up, rounding down, it doesn't always quite add up to the 100%. We're now going to talk about the organisations and help that's available for spouses, partners and children of those within the armed forces community. This is defined as those who are spouse, partners and children of those currently serving, those transitioning from the military, and of course our veterans community. As you can see from the slide, there are a number of organisations who can help. This slide is by no means all the organisations across Scotland who can help with our armed forces community, but it does detail some of our key partners who we work with in Skills Development Scotland. There are approximately 12,000 armed forces children in schools across Scotland, so it's not an insignificant number when you think about it. Perhaps one of the key organisations that we work with would be Forces Children Scotland, formerly known as the Royal Caledonian Education Trust. I have on these slides included links to the websites, so when you get the slides, please take some time to click on each of the organisations to find out a little bit more about them. You'll see there we've got the tri-service family federations. Each branch of the military has its own family federations. They're a real vocal support to families and lobby on behalf of families and serving personnel a number of issues, including housing, employment, postings, and various other issues that you come across during service. SAFA is the Soldier, Sailors and Air Force Association, which is been around for a long, long time now and can provide welfare support and various other services. Watch this space for more information about SAFA and the work they do coming out soon as they're busy recruiting new personnel across the country. Defence Children's Services is the Ministry of Defence branch that deals with service children schools, and are responsible for the policy and the delivery of education, especially to those serving overseas. ShoP Scotland, as it says on the tin, ShoP Scotland provide a whole range of welfare and other support to the armed forces community, most notably around Remembrance Weekend or Remembrance Day, when obviously you will see all the people wearing their poppies. And of course, Veterans Scotland are the umbrella organisation for about 80 plus service, third sector and statutory organisations. There are many, many more organisations that do provide support. This is just a small flavour of these. On this slide, you will see we're talking about the Armed Forces Community Covenant. The Armed Forces Community Covenant was set up as a promise from the nation, ensuring that those that serve or who have served and their families are treated fairly. To those who proudly protect our nation, who do so with honour, courage and commitment, the Armed Forces Covenant is the nation's commitment to you. And it's designed to provide parity, not priority. So what does this mean? Well, for example, if you're in an armed forces family and one of the family members is on an NHS waiting list, and you then got moved to another part of the UK, you would not be put to the bottom of the waiting list in your new area. You should join that waiting list where you are on in your current location. And this is to ensure that there's parity, but not priority. There are three elements of the Armed Forces Community Covenant that are enshrined in law, in UK law, and those are housing, health, and education, with comradeship, which includes employment and employability, is being looked at with a view to those being brought into UK law as well, which has been adopted in Scotland. Skills Development Scotland have signed the Armed Forces Covenant, and we are in the process of acquiring our silver level in the Defence Employer Recognition Scheme. As part of the Defence Employer Recognition Scheme, we have to be Armed Forces Covenant signatories, which we did when we achieved our bronze status a couple of years ago. We'll now move on to talk about support organisations, and the first one we're going to talk about is the Career Transition Partnership, CTP. CTP is the official resettlement service for the Armed Forces. It's delivered by Reading Partnership from October 24 and was previously delivered by Right Management. So as you can see from this slide, the CTP is the official resettlement service for the Armed Forces. I have included in each of the slides a link to the relevant website at the top of the page in blue. So if you click on MOD CTP, it will take you to the CTP web pages. There are some of the information within the MOD CTP site is behind the firewall and you have to be registered, but there is some open source information there to tell you a wee bit about the service that's provided. The Career Transition Partnership brings together expert personal support, employers and training providers to help those who have served to resettle into civilian life. If you serve full term in the military, your support will begin from 2 years before leaving and will last for up to 2 years post-service. This, however, isn't often the case. For example, if you've not served full term, you're provided to give 1 year's notice from the military, during which you will go through your settlement period. But if you have, for any reason, been compulsory discharged from the military, for example, you have failed a compulsory drugs test, then you still have access to CTP services, but this may be delayed slightly because they tend to move you away from your serving unit fairly quickly in this case. We have a memorandum of understanding with our colleagues in the MOD within the Talent, Skills, Learning and Development branch of the Ministry of Defence, or TSLD for short. They manage the CTP contract, and the memorandum of understanding we have with them allows us to work quite closely with CTP around joint working, attendance at their job events, and working with them with other partners to develop tools such as the military to civilian qualifications tool that is on the My World of Work platform. I would urge you to have a look at the qualifications tool if you've not yet done so. It really is a fantastic tool and has nearly 600 military qualifications mapped over to the SCQF framework. It's well worth a look. This slide has just been put in for illustrative purposes, and it's to let you have a look at the occupation outcomes for service leavers who have used a bit. It says a billable CTP service. What they mean is that they've accessed the CTP provision. And as you can see there, across all branches of the military, there is a huge range of occupations and job roles that people go into. It is a testimony to both CTP and to the armed forces community that well over 90% of those who leave the military are still in employment 6 months post discharge. So that's really useful and shows and demonstrates the depths of service provided by CTP. I'm going to talk now about the Forces Employment Charity, formerly known as the Regular Forces Employment Association, who have the acronym FEC. They are known as FEC, affectionately called FECers, for those who are familiar with Father Ted. The Forces Employment Charity provides lifelong support for those who have served in the military. They have also started providing wider support to families, including spouses, partners and children, although this has not yet fully developed in Scotland. It has done across the other parts of the UK. They deliver a real diverse range of programmes, and I've included links to all these programmes here. It's probably worth having a look in at some of them. You know, some of them are fairly obvious by their titles what they are. And for example, where they provide support to the Career Transition Partnership, they will deliver the workshops for those who have served less than 4 years. So they will get a shorter resettlement period than somebody who's done full term. Nova Scotland for those who are ex-offenders. So if you come across a veteran who's been part of the justice system, then Nova Scotland, for example, may be able to provide support with that. It's dead easy to access Forces Employment Charity Services. Again, there's a link there to the web page there. And for ex-military, all they require to register is details of their service, including their service number, which everyone should remember from service. The Officers Association in Scotland, OAS, and should not be confused with just the Officers Association, which covers the rest of the UK and recently merged with the Forces Employment Charity. But the Officers Association in Scotland is a standalone organisation with its own chief executive. Again, I've included a link to the Officers Association page at the top of this slide. The Officers Association is primarily focused on serving officers and their families across Scotland. They do, though, allow access to all ranks to their events, and in particular employment events. We have worked closely with them at these events, providing support to service users where required. And for example, we recently met with several individuals at the employment event that was held up in up in Forres, up in Murray, and it was demonstrating the military to civilian qualifications tool. So, although all ranks can access their events, the support, financial support, and ongoing support is primarily targeted at officers as per their, their organisation name. They are the Officers Association. So Veterans Scotland. Veterans Scotland is an umbrella organisation for over 80 organisations, with over 50 of them based in Scotland. Veterans Scotland are a key partner for us in STS and has provided us with valuable support over the years, including the content of this presentation. They provided some of the census data, slides, etc. for us. And we're also part of their wider Veterans Scotland Employment Employability Group, and they're regular attenders presenters at their national and local gatherings. So Veterans Scotland recognise that for veterans and their families, aspects of life after leaving services can be challenging. They have a whole myriad of organisations, as I've said, so it's well worth clicking on the link. They also produce a very handy booklet, their Veterans Scotland booklet, and have a dedicated website, Veterans Assist Scotland, where veterans and those working with veterans can go to find out all relevant information that they may require. There's also a UK-wide website called Veterans Gateway, not to be confused with Veterans Assist, where there is similar information, though Veterans Assist Scotland is more focused on us living here in Scotland. On this slide, I've just put together a montage of some of the organisations who work with veterans, who work with us, and it's by no means all, but as you can see, it's a very busy area for those working and living in Scotland and the help and support that's available. So within STS, we have a network of champions. So each region will have an Armed Forces champion. We also have Armed Forces champions within the helpline, the customer engagement team. We have an Armed Forces champion within our Marcoms team, and we have two who are working on the employer engagement side. We also have a Yammer page, so Viva Engage, sorry, as it's now known. I still refer to it as Yammer using old language, and I'm sure most of you probably do as well. So please feel free to join the SDS Armed Forces community page on Yammer, and there are resources available on Connect, which if you're looking through the ShoP of Practice module and looking to develop, there are further reading, or there is further reading available for you. Thank you for listening today. If you have any more questions or have any questions or suggestions, please get in touch, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.